ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਖੜਾ ਲੁਕਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਨੀਮੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਚੀਰ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਪੱਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਖੜਾ ਲੁਕਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਐਵੇਂ ਕਰੀ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਚ ਕੇ ਰਹੀ ਨੀ ਤੂੰ ਹੁਣੇ ਹੁਣੇ ਹੋਈ ਮੁਟਿਆਰ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਚ ਕੇ ਰਹੀ ਨੀ ਤੂੰ ਹੁਣੇ ਹੁਣੇ ਹੋਈ ਮੁਟਿਆਰ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਚ ਕੇ ਰਹੀ बहार मुंडिया तो बच के रही नी तू हुणे हुणे होई मुटियार मुंडिया तो बच के रही नी तू हुणे हुणे होई मुटियार मुंडिया तो बच के रही कर दी जवान तेरा रूप ठाठा मारदा पतला जलक ना हुनारा भी सहारदा
There we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, podcast fans of all ages, party people in the place to be. I am Dave Valente. Thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the first week of the Trump administration. But first, before we get too deep into the night, we are going to be talking with Jake Porter. Thank you for joining us tonight, Jake. Talking about his report that has led to the resignation of Angela McArdle, the well, I don't even know what her status is right now. Chair Emeritus of the Libertarian Party, I guess.
There's no merit there. There is no merit.
There really is no merit at all. But resigned on Friday night, citing a pending job. I'm not sure if it requires an orange uniform or not, but exposing the embezzlement of massive amounts.
I've heard that she is being appointed ambassador to Fredonia.
Stankonia.
Follow the Marx Brothers.
But anyway, Jake, thanks for joining us tonight. Talk a little bit about your findings and what led to your report here.
I thought we were going to talk about bylaws.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to do policy manual later, but yeah.
Yep. So, kind of going back, I've been looking at things within the Libertarian Party for a while, when Angela McArdle, decided that she was going to bring Donald Trump to the convention. And then we find out that no, Trump actually invited himself. A lot of things just weren't adding up, and there was other stuff. The secret trip to Mar-a-Lago that happened that wasn't reported to the board for months and months after. Even after the national convention happened, we had our presidential nominee. We still didn't know that she met with Donald Trump back in November of 2023. So we go through, and then after the election, we've got this joint fundraising committee, and I start to look to see where the money's going. And money's flowing back from all these Kennedy organizations back to her organization. We see about $700 plus thousand flowing from Kennedy organizations over to hers. And so I start to take a little bit deeper look into the joint fundraising committee that the Libertarian Party made with Robert Kennedy. And I find that there's this odd thing that goes to a mailbox in Texas. And I look at it and I see that's the same mailbox that Angela uses for her PAC that gets money from the So I said, okay, that's a little bit weird. It's the same pack and post store. And so we find out that it's incorporated in Delaware. And we do some searching and find out that who owns this? Her domestic partner, Austin Paget, owns this. And so after I wrap up with this, we go looking through the Libertarian National Committee reports. And I notice I'm just looking through companies and most everything's checking out legitimate. And there's one that this Freedom Calls LLC, and it says they're doing, fundraising. I think that's odd because it seems like there are no funds being raised within the Libertarian Party, right?
Yep.
What are they paying $50,000 a month for? And I see on the FEC reports it says Delaware. I said, oh, this seems pretty odd. And I thought, when did Austin Paget, her domestic partner, he used to get paid to do fundraising. When did his contract end? Well, his contract ended in January. His last payment was January 2024. This company started making money in February 2024. Now, a little bit of background on that. She had hired him without board approval somewhere around August of 2023. It paid, I think it was around $60,000 there for his fundraising, and hired without telling the board. And later on, the board, of course, they find out. I mean, she wasn't trying to conceal it; just hired him without telling him. And they changed the policy manual. They make it to where stuff like this cannot happen again, or so they thought. And they ended the contract. Well, the contract doesn't renew, but she decides that she's acting apparently as executive director, so she's signing the contract, and she signs the contract. This Freedom Calls LLC. So I'm still looking into it, and I was able to do enough searching to find a website on Freedom Calls LLC. Odd for a website, they don't list a phone number. They say that the owners are a radical group of individualists. Well, that's pretty vague. Who's going to do business with just a radical group of individualists? So I go through and I look and I find out that no federal candidate or campaign has been paid has paid them other than the Libertarian National Committee. So, well, that's pretty odd too. So we went through and there was an attorney that helped me get the first documents in Delaware. Delaware is very, very difficult to get documentation on who incorporates it. The state just doesn't hand it over, but there are some attorneys that you can get it through third parties. And so this attorney was able to get me the documentation that showed that Austin Paget also had incorporated this business.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And you have that document in your possession now, right? Right. It's up on your Substack.
That's correct. Yep.
So, I know Dave put the link in the comments, but just to make sure people don't know, jakeporter.substack.com. From there, you can find all the other stuff. And, the nice thing about Substack is if you value work like this, you can leave a little tip to help defray some of the costs, because this sounds like it was a tremendous amount of work, Jake. If you were to estimate your total hours and what you've done on this.
If I estimate my total hours, my girlfriend right now is watching this, I'm sure, and she will probably kill me. So I'm not going to do that. But it was a lot of work. There was a lot of evenings that went into this and days off that went into looking for this, looking to see what we could find.
Well, let me be the first to say thank you, because this work really did need to be done. And I especially appreciate sort of the thoroughness. Now, let me ask the next question that people are probably wondering. This seems, this is bad, but politics is a corrupt business. Is any of this truly actionable?
And this was one of the interesting things that I've talked with people after this that now think this one's a big deal, but they didn't think the reports I did before were big. Well, the reports I did before, shows that she is making agreements with Robert Kennedy, and there's money also from Robert Kennedy's PACs that are supporting her work, and they can argue that she's not making a salary off this. I don't know. But I do know that she is personally benefiting whenever her organizations do, and they didn't take that serious. And when the swing vote strategist came up, that was the one that was making money from the joint fundraising committee. They would say, well, that's Robert Kennedy money. It doesn't matter. And it wasn't until this one happened that, this was roughly, I'm going to estimate about 5% of the Libertarian Party's budget that was being spent on this fundraising contract. And the first, excuse you hear is, well, they need to do fundraising. They were doing fundraising. Well, I don't know whether they're doing fundraising or not. It's irrelevant to the main point that she did something without the board approval, did something completely unethical, and she concealed this. Not only did she not disclose it, there was the previous contract that was in her conflicts of interest in August of 2024, I believe it was. She sent an email out saying, please remove Mr. Paget from here. He's no longer a contractor. So now she's leading them to believe, and I mean, you could say, well, he's not a contractor, it's the business, but she is leading them to believe she's lying by omission.
It's interesting. I wonder if you've heard from any of the large donors. I know that there was one max donation. What? Am I muted?
Are there any left?
There was one max donor that came in at the end of 2023, and they sort of attributed, they claimed that was Austin who secured that donation. For people who know, that donor usually donates twice as much every year. Both he and his wife made a max donation. He didn't do that this year. Didn't do that in 2023. But it's going to be interesting to learn what that person thinks, or what other people think, other large donors, about the idea that their money went straight into Angela's family's coffers, rather than,
It's a lot of
to promote liberty, to achieve ballot access. When you consider that, they claimed that they were raising money to do the work of the Libertarian Party, which then failed to get Chase Oliver on the ballot in Tennessee, where they only needed 275 signatures. That's an impressive failure for an organization that supposedly had a professional fundraiser.
Yeah.
So,
what is your sense? I mean, I know that we got the motion by at-large rep Travis Boss to do the investigation into Angela, and I think that's started where, this should have been her week where she takes the victory lap over the Ross Ulbricht release, and by Friday she is now updating her resume. Do you think that, where do you think that is going to go? Do you think that the LNC is going to continue to investigate this, or now that she has left, that they're just going to sweep this under the rug?
Well, first of all, somebody has told me that it was not anything to do with this, to why she's resigned. She just had one of those rare opportunities that come up at 12:30 on a Friday night that you just have to resign your position, while you're under investigation by the board. So the question is, what does she do? Well, there's an interesting thing going on right now that apparently she is not. She gave no effective date, so it's going to be effective whenever the board approves it. And I guess that it would take 2 weeks for that to happen. So she's not even really resigned, and apparently trying to stay on, from what I hear. I can't quite confirm everything with that yet, but apparently trying to stay on for 2 weeks for some reason. And so they're now going to have to.
Takes time to shred documents, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know what that's going to look like. Now, as far as the investigation, that was probably a step. I think it's a step in their bylaws, or to go forward with removal. So, that's why they named that committee. But I'm really of the opinion they need to hire an outside forensic auditor, an investigator, to come in independently and look over the books, look over all the contracts, look over the work samples of not only this company, but also the other contractors they've got on there, and have a full report back. Who else is being paid, and also what did people on staff know, and when did they know it?
Exactly.
They may have not known anything, but it's something that does need to be addressed. The idea that you can just, the chair's resigned, we're not going to do anything. I don't buy that. And then there's the question: does the party want to try to recoup any of this money back? and that's a whole separate question where there's legal questions.
Right.
But
It's good. Well, I mean, one of the interesting things about it is going to be, is there going to be an LNC member who's going to try to play this for political gain by now being the white knight that leads the investigation that actually Jake did, but says, oh, yeah, we sort of had the suspicion, and now we're going to do stuff with it. I have a feeling that because it's politics, you are going to see somebody try to do that. But I hope that the LNC members understand that almost everybody is complicit, with the exception of a few state reps or a few regional reps. Most of them have been voting in lockstep to enable this farce, and some of them also got paid. Right? We know that Pat Ford got paid out of the JFC.
His nonprofit did. This is quite an interesting setup. So, interesting thing that the Joint Fundraising Committee with Robert Kennedy, Pat Ford's created a PAC, the Libertarian Mutual Aid PAC. The PAC then turns around and it gives money to Pat Ford's nonprofit in Rhode Island.
Yep.
And the interesting, so the nonprofit cannot be on the Joint Fundraising Committee because it cannot take money from a nonprofit, pay back to the Libertarian Party, which is required in the agreement. So this is a pass through, it appears. Now I don't know what else the PAC does. They don't tend to file reports. It doesn't look like with the FEC,
Right.
So or file them on time.
Right.
So we don't know exactly what that money is. But
Now,
it goes.
The one interesting thing I'll say about this is that we're brushing up against the fact that campaign finance laws are incredibly stupid. They're just, it's the dumbest thing in the world. The idea that there could be I hide it well, but I'm secretly a billionaire. And so for me to get around the maximum donation to a candidate of, my donation limit last year was $4,200, I think, maybe it's 41. But my PAC could give $10,000 to the candidate. So if I want to give $100,000, I just have to create 10 PACs, each doing different things. And because I'm a billionaire, I'm happy to do that. And so this part of campaign finance has always been bullshit, right? The wealthy have ways to give money. And part of the stuff that we're complaining about here is tied into the ludicrousness of campaign finance. However, because of the campaign finance laws, people who donate money don't think that they are giving money to support Donald Trump when they're giving money to the LNC or when they're giving money to the Joint Fundraising Committee, because the Joint Fundraising Committee is announced before Kennedy endorses Trump, right?
That's it. And then we've now got the Libertarian Party paying for ads with Robert Kennedy and Donald Trump Jr. so they can go falconing or whatever. And we've now got the Libertarian Party with their name right on that ad.
Yeah, I mean it's an incredibly sad state of affairs, and I do rarely wish for government intervention, except fraud is fraud, and the purpose of the government is to provide a recourse so that we don't have to take justice into our own hands. And so here, when we're talking about what is justice, when somebody has fraudulently taken money from you, justice is probably remuneration. They should have to pay you the money back. But then I think that there's also there's a criminal component here. And I think that these people are a threat to repeat these crimes if not punished for it. So I do hope that there's going to be some sort of action to take criminals who will repeat their crimes off the street. That's my feeling.
And Dan, you mentioned complicity earlier. I would also say once this dust starts settling and they get new management, a new board, people that can be trustworthy, desperately, the LP needs to change its bylaws dramatically to make sure that rogue groups like Mises can't come in and do what they just did. It sounds like it happened a couple of decades before. Now it's happened again. Unless they do that, I don't see why anyone would have any confidence in the LP going forward.
I mean, I hear that, Joe, but I think that we, the old guard, need to recognize the fact that we couldn't stop it. Right? I mean, we saw it coming.
But it had I disagree. If the bylaws had been changed in such a way that train wreck wouldn't have happened. And there are ways to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Otherwise, why bother?
Well, I mean, one of the things you'd have to change, I think, is you have to change the state bylaws, right? Because the states control the convention.
Yep.
Massachusetts has a bylaw, and I'm talking about now LAMA, Libertarian Association of Massachusetts, which is no longer the affiliate of the LNC, but they had a bylaw that said you had to be a member of the party for a year before you could be a delegate to the convention. Mm-hmm. That's a reasonable protection. I think something like that could happen, but in general, the LNC's bylaws are not particularly binding on the states. You could put something in there saying, we don't want something. But if the LP is going to come back, which I don't know, and I don't know that I even want to think about putting any effort into doing that. But if it were to come back, they'd have to. I mean, the bylaws were gutted. I sort of floated this around a little bit today. Maybe there could be, a group of people who say, okay, the bylaws were fucked. And so let's start off with what we want to do with the convention first, is restore the 2018 bylaws. And people say, why not the 2020 bylaws? We didn't get to bylaws in 2020, so the bylaws didn't change. So restore the 2018 bylaws, which includes the abortion plank. It includes the
bigotry plank,
and the borders stuff. Yep. All the things that they took out to make the. Go ahead.
And I was also going to say your recommendation about it needs to start at the state level, individual state levels. I know some states do not permit out of state residents to vote.
Right.
Well, but whereas Pennsylvania did permit it, and that's the kind of thing that has to be ended. Otherwise, you get the rogue groups that can organize and take over this state, and the whole ball's rolling again.
Yeah, California sold delegate seats, right? When it's a convention somewhere far away, California never has a full delegation because they have something like 120 delegates, and they don't have that many people who want to pay roughly $2,000, right, for convention weekend. And so for $50, you could become a delegate to the national convention representing California. So, somehow that system was abused by a real political party that had real money, right? Republicans have political money out the wazoo. So, we know all this part of the operations, the Philadelphia connection, Cliff Maloney, Michael Heiss, all that stuff. And it is what it is. But let's circle around the thing and talk again a little bit more about Jake's great work here.
Okay.
Do you think, Jake, that there is some evidence of conspiracy? Do you see any of that? Or do you think it's just the chair and her family?
With this specific thing, I think it would be just the chair because I think the LNC was really caught by surprise. I don't think she wanted this to get out. I think it was hidden. I don't think this is one thing you tell other people about. And that may have been why that we got the swift reaction that we did from the LNC. Because, at first I'm thinking, are they going to cover this up? They're going to sweep it under the rug immediately. They're going to go back and they're going to, agree to this contract after the fact to make it okay. And we don't see that. We see an immediate, investigation of the chair. And so it tells me pretty quick that they don't know about it, and they're actually probably pretty upset. It also puts their fiduciary duty at risk. Now, I know many things have before. Now, one thing that does shock me in this is they're now saying, well, or I'm hearing rumors that, they're finding stuff. I imagine they're probably just reading my first Substack that I wrote months ago that they all just decided to just cover their eyes and not see. This stuff has been out there for a while, and we're surprised at what we're finding.
Right.
Well, if you would have listened to one in the past, 3 or 4 years or longer, you would have known this stuff was
right.
out
I'm
there.
thinking of Casablanca. I'm shocked to learn that there's gambling going on here.
Well, and do you think maybe that Angela is holding on in the hopes that she can negotiate some sort of I'll resign in exchange for you not turning this information over to another
but that would be RICO. That would be RICO actionable if it's fraud.
Well, let's just say that this board has proven that it's not really compliant with laws.
I imagine for the first time they may actually be listening to counsel that they may have not listened to in the past, or may have been told stuff the counsel didn't say. So I imagine they're finally getting a little bit of a different perspective here than they had before. But I don't know that she has any leverage. I think that's one of the things that has happened when all this came down is she became the leader of the Dave Smith. I think was the leader. He decided not to run, and I think during that time, Angela McArdle became kind of the head of the. You can say Michael Heiss is, but I don't think he had the charisma or the skills to quite lead this, or the position to, for that matter. And I think people coalesced behind her and the stuff she was telling about Ross and about her meeting with Trump and all this stuff. And I think people really thought that she was the kingmaker, as she called herself. People in the Mises circles, and now we find out that she doesn't have power. And it appears that Heiss may be trying to get back on, or trying to get on the board as chair. It seems like they're just trying anything they can to save their
save their
organization, save the Mises caucus, and it appears to be falling apart.
That would be some crazy shit. I can't understand how they could possibly get him elected chair, because we went through this. I don't know how the bylaws have been changed. But the last time the bylaws, when we had a succession question, it was clear that it was supposed to be elected from one of the remaining officers.
And we know one officer that has been recently reinstated, which would be completely on brand for the Libertarian Party at this point to have Secretary Karen Anna Harlow's go from possibly being removed again to becoming chair.
Well, as we say, you can't spell chaos without CAH. So there's
and when you think about that too, there's another conspiracy there. You talk about them trying to remove her for what it appears to be the fact that she put Chase Oliver on the Colorado ballot. Isn't that horrible? Just doing what the delegates asked her to. Put Chase Oliver on the ballot, and then Angela McArdle contacts the secretary, lies. Well, she's asked, well, did you try to remove Chase Oliver? Well, no, that's a lie. And then, of course, we find out that she asked the Secretary of State to remove the electors. Right. Like anyone really thinks that Angela McArdle cared about the individual electors that were listed in Colorado. The goal was to get Chase Oliver off the ballot so they could put RFK on the ballot, which might give a little bit of credibility. The Joint Fundraising Committee is legal.
Yeah.
If he's on the ballot in the state, maybe this thing is actually legal.
No, it's there's so much craziness. I actually do think, and this is, I'm hoping that some organization will take up the criminal investigation, because I do think that there is a conspiracy here. I suspect if you look at all the other people who made money out of the JFC, Pat Ford, um, Edelman from Massachusetts, with United Libertarians of Massachusetts, a few other organizations. I think they got $40,000 in Massachusetts. It's astonishing, and I suspect that all of those people knew that what they were doing was illegal, that they were just getting paid.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them assumed that because the Libertarian Party is so small that the feds would not look at it, and well, because there have been all kinds of questionable shit that's gone on with the Libertarian Party in the last 5 years
Yep.
that the feds could have stepped in at any time, but chosen not to because really there's not like a it's not like people are clamoring for the Libertarian Party to get taken to court. It's if the Democrats or Republicans, that's a different story. But I just don't think that they're
What, you say last 5 years? I'm interested in
well. I
your
mean, I'm
timeline.
generalizing that we've had a
Okay,
lot of not just
I
federal
think
issues, but
up till
state
20,
issues.
yeah, up till 2022, I think things were still above board. While Robert Kraus was still filing all the
Yeah, in
reports.
state parties though we had
Oh, state parties for
you
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've had some
No, that's
issues.
crazy shit. I have to comment on Kat's comment, and then I wanted to go down and talk about a couple of the other comments, although I can't scroll through them. But it's funny
Adrian
because
Malagon.
uh, Kat's comment said when she said anybody because of her typo, or I'm assuming it's voice to text correct. Anybody who serves on a board with her knows. I actually thought that was a comment about her physical appearance until you corrected that, Kat. So thank you for coming back with that. It was pretty funny. But you're 100% right that the board meetings have had all of these examples of everything, all the reasons why Angela was unfit, but she was surrounded by sycophants. Not even sycophants, people who were getting a excuse me, a promise of a payday, and that's why they did what they could to keep her in power, because she kept them in power, and there was money. Even in the beginning, they learned from the People's event on at the Lincoln Memorial for the quote unquote anti-war rally with the LaRouche Party. Um, they made money out of that, right? Angela
Well,
and
she made money out of that. I
right,
don't
she
think
made money.
anybody.
No, but right, but she showed the path there. Which the thing is, every LNC
I mean, it was rubles.
chair prior to her has known that opportunity is there. Anybody who's been around the political cycle knows that the opportunity for fraud is there. I mean, we have a friend of the show who made $2 million in 2020 by forming a Stop the Steal 501c4, getting Republicans to give him money, and then saying, "Sorry, the election wasn't stolen. I did a lot of research. Thank you for your $2 million to support me." So that option is there, but uh, Aaron makes an interesting point. Dave, you were gone when JBH resigned, right?
No, I was still there. That was the last in person meeting I went to was Chicago, and then the next weekend that whole story broke, and it was just
Right.
batshit crazy.
Yep. I was thinking about the fact is that the last chair to finish a full 2-year term, their full obligation of terms is Sarwark,
Yeah.
right? Because Joe didn't finish, Whitney didn't get a full term. Now Angela's leaving.
Well, she got a full term. She
She had one
did
full
get the
term. She did
she
have
had
one
the
full term.
first full term.
Right. It's a
So,
crazy party.
well, Jake, do you think that the Libertarian Party is salvageable at this point?
That remains to be seen. Angela and the Mises Caucus, they created this culture on the committee where you couldn't ask questions, you couldn't do anything, because if you went against them, you were going to get kicked off. You weren't going to have the support, you were going to lose. So a lot of people, I think, are probably thinking for the first time that maybe their heads are a little bit clearer about what needs to happen. And so she was setting direction for the party. I don't think it was intentional, like she was sitting there trying to, I'm gonna tank membership or anything like that. I think she's incompetent. She didn't know what she was doing.
Yeah.
And then she sees but she does know how to scheme and how to consolidate power behind herself. That probably comes instinctively to her. But the actual running the operation, so she'd try to steal stuff like that had been done in the past. Oh, we're going to do training. We're going to do, and there was no goal after the takeover. The goal was to take over and nothing else. And I asked him, I warned him about that, actually years ago, on what's your goal after you take over? What happens? And there was no goal.
Well, it certainly looks like destroy the party was the goal, and they succeeded beautifully.
That's like Donald Trump, though. I mean, when Donald Trump got elected, it was the dog that caught the car. Like, it had, like, what do I do now? And the first time that Trump was in office, it just spun out of control because they didn't have the apparatus in place to actually govern once he got into office. I think this time is going to be a little bit different. I still think there's the same crazy ass swirl, but Mises Caucus was very much the same way. They came in, they destroyed everything that had been there, and promising to bring back essentially the same stuff, the training, the outreach, that type of stuff, but never followed through on it. They fundraised on it, they brought in money on it, and then they just pissed it away.
Well, I mean, they had a really good map of what worked for fundraising, because they came in on the heels of the most successful fundraising LP in modern history. And I say in modern history, the stuff that happened before Harry Brown, I'm not counting. But remember, too, that when the Reform Party started to become successful, Republican operatives infiltrated the Reform Party, busted it up in convention, caused it to get enormous amounts of fines by the IRS, so that they could never from the FEC, so that they could never come back into existence. So, will some of that happen in this case? Will the LNC accrue fines for this misconduct? They may. And they may
because, if
that are going to require that the FEC will require to be paid before you can do any more activity. And so,
sure,
the Reform Party can't come back into existence until they pay $14 million in fines to the FEC.
Well, and if the vindictive nature of Donald Trump, if we're seen as taking, or the Libertarian Party is seen as taking things out on Angela for her missteps, her illegality, that there may be more of an incentive for the FEC to go after we removed his girl from the LNC. Now the vultures come in and swoop everything and fine us into oblivion. I hate to us.
There's a question that I have, though. I mean, if they allow this joint fundraising committee to go forward as it has, and they don't step down on it, what is to stop whoever's the Republican and Democrat nominees from just creating a bunch of third parties and just having and just raising that infinitely? There would be nothing to stop that. Yeah. So at some point the FEC may say no. Further on, we were talking about the conspiracy. The people that are destroying the party don't necessarily have to know they're even in a conspiracy, though. You just put some really unstable and incompetent people, you just give them the idea, you should take over this party, you should run for chair, you should run for this. And things kind of just happen.
Yeah, well, you just described the Mises Caucus beautifully.
Yeah, you don't want. I don't think a lot of the people here are capable of coming up with a conspiracy, right? I don't think they're capable of thinking that deep about it. But I do think there are people that have put people up to run for stuff, knowing full well what would happen whenever they did. I mean, I think of that candidate that ran for governor of, I think it was governor of New Hampshire a few years ago. I mean, I think that was I think they knew how that would end.
What, the Carlin Borisenko or Jeremy Kaufman?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, both of them.
Yeah, both of them. I mean, peas
but
of
I think
pod.
Jeremy knows what he's doing, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. I don't know that the LP is salvageable. I think the problem with the LP moving forward is bidirectional in that the reputation of the LP has been sullied to a point where getting involved, if you're an activist who wants to get involved in the LP, that you're possibly taking on some of the taint of what has gone on in the party the last 5 years.
If you're a
And
donor who wants to give money, you're giving money to an organization that you know looks the other way at the bare minimum, right? Because none of this could have happened without compliance from, the at least the other officers who should have had the oversight over what was happening with the Joint Fundraising Committee.
Yeah.
If the LNC is a signatory to the JFC, appropriately named, then there's a call for oversight. And this happened on the watch of I have deep respect for Bill Redpath, and it'll be interesting to hear if he thinks it's safe to come out of the bunker now.
Great analogy.
What notes he took while he was there, because his mission was, literally he was a forward observer. People who have been in the military, forward observer is somebody who actually goes behind enemy lines or away from the front so that they can spot where artillery is. An incredibly dangerous position. That's what Redpath had to do. And in theory, Rutherford was supposed to be there with them. I get Mark leaving, and I have a great deal of respect for Mark as well. But hopefully Bill has got some good notes about a lot of stuff that happened, and possibly
as treasurer, hopefully
go ahead.
As treasurer, hopefully he's got some of that. But again, I don't know. It didn't seem like they were very forthcoming with a lot of the data.
Well, one of the things too was how the people said, well, we want to stop this from happening in the future. Well, I think the safeguards were there. I think the safeguards were destroyed. Yeah. And at that point, it appears that, there were people that did try to speak out. Mark Tonovics, Beth Vest, people that did try to speak out, Todd Hagopian. And whenever they did, they were ridiculed. And I'm told it was much worse in the private communications than it were even the horrible things that we saw. You learned quick not to ask questions especially if you're on their side, right? If you're on the Mises caucus. And so it begins to quit operating like a political board and operates more like a cult. You don't question your dear leader, Angela McArdle. You don't do any of this, because if you do, you're going to get ridiculed. And if you don't have a big social circle, you're going to lose them all, because the Mises caucus will take that away from you.
You say cult, I say criminal conspiracy.
And I'll go on and say it certainly doesn't sound at all functional, and certainly embarrassing.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
that's right, and they have done a good job of making sure. Some people have of making sure that the board wouldn't find stuff. And it was the treasurer didn't see the actual contracts. There were things in place that prevented them from seeing it, and I can understand that. So I can grant them a little bit on that, and I think many of them have been trying to get past that point. But Beth Vest asked several questions of the of the committee last time, and questions we're still talking about. And I can't blame Beth Vest for not getting answers about the Rage Against the War Machine round when she asked several times and was told no. Keith Thompson has asked questions, and he gets told, actually accused of
he's a hater,
slander of the written word.
It is astonishing their efforts to conceal things too. So I can reveal a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. When they turned off the Google groups in the beginning, they said that it couldn't be done. That they couldn't have fixed the Microsoft system with the public Google groups. And so I had a friend who was still on staff, and I said, here's a document I have written how to connect Microsoft Teams to Google groups. And then suddenly they were able to implement it. But that's an example of, them trying to bury everything, the complete transparency. And, I don't want to, I don't want to say anything nice about Karen Ann. So I'm going to stop talking now.
Yeah. Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining us on this subject. You're welcome to stick with us as we talk about the first week of the Trumpster fire. If you want to stick around with us, if not, you can feel free to drop. But I really appreciate all the work you've done. It is jakeporter.substack.com. Is Jake Porter's Substack? Is Jake Porter is all one word.
Jake Porter is spelled exactly the way you would think it was spelled.
Yeah, exactly.
No
that is the
yeah,
the link to what he wrote. That tremendous work.
and
Again, this should have been a week that.
Here.
What's that?
I was going to say it doesn't quite end here for you though, either,
No.
Jake. Right? There's still some leads you're chasing.
There's still some things looking at. Some go a little bit deeper into the Trump, and I think more RFK. She may claim to have this close personal relationship with Trump. I think that's BS, but there is something that goes on within the RFK campaign that led to the joint fundraising committee. There's more stuff there. There's still a lot more transactions to look at, and there's still state parties to look at. There's all kinds of stuff.
I want to say too that at Freedom Fest in 2023, Angela met with RFK, and they talked about him being the Libertarian candidate at that point in time. What they didn't do was, they didn't have the realization that we've always been vulnerable to this, that you could, the term of art among political operatives is astroturf. You could astroturf all the state conventions for not much money. And again, I will tell people that when I was talking with Bill Weld, we talked about doing that in 2020 when he was going to seek the nomination. We estimated that we could do it for, under $250,000. It would be pretty easy. And, in this case, Bill actually had a lot of popular support among many libertarians. But even if you didn't, for $1 million, you could get anybody in. You could get Robert Kennedy to be the presidential nominee. And the Libertarian Party had a setup in that was essentially impossible to defeat that because it's just not big enough to fight big money. I don't know what the solution to that going forward is. The one thing I do feel pretty confident about, though, is that criminals always eventually reveal themselves. And that's what's happened here, thanks to Jake's investigative work.
The frustrating thing about this whole thing is that I don't think that she hit herself all that much. It was just she had enough loyalists to run interference for her. And, there were clear lines violated throughout this entire process that because she had such a pliant board that she just didn't, she stopped caring about, trying to hide it. Now she did try to hide the once they broke the Paget thing and they, she pulled him out of that contract, then she tried to hide it. But I mean, for the most part, this was a pretty brazen just reallocation of funds.
Yeah, it was 100%. And the saddest thing about it is that it was all avoidable.
Oh, yeah.
if you know if the general membership, and I'm pointing my fingers now at the people who supported the Mises Caucus in general, if they had been willing to say nobody's perfect, we should listen to these allegations, that would have been so much better. We would have had a much better and a much earlier scenario. And the graft didn't start on day one, right? It took a while to build up because when you're there, when you're sitting in the office, and I'll say this again from my perspective as executive director, there are always huge, let's not say huge, but there are financial opportunities that present themselves to the chair and to the executive director of the Libertarian Party. I used to say that the best gift I could give the Libertarian Party when I was executive director was that I didn't need the money. And so I was able to always tell them, and Aaron can vouch for this, I pissed my LNC off plenty, but I was always very honest, straightforward, and upfront with them. And that was my job. That was my job, was to present them all the options all the time. Angela's in this position where she does need the money. And now, when things come by, the cookie jar is right there. And she starts off.
She was always upfront about the fact that she did not have money and that she wanted money, that she tried to run a tree on when she first started to be able to be a full-time.
Well, she still has it. It still actually pays, I think, about $1,200 a month.
Oh, dang. Fools and money.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that's a place where Karen Ann has been as well, right? Karen Ann has a similar GoFundMe sort of thing to pay for her doing stuff.
I think most of hers is spent with probably on travel, though, whereas as Angela's went, Angela's got into making weird-looking board games of LNC members and trying to pass that off, and
Boner D.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Her cosmetic company.
Right.
Just all kinds of stuff, and now her, just board games. It's just weird stuff.
Right.
Yep. So anyway,
it's going to be an interesting 2 weeks.
Yeah. Apparently there was a meeting that was supposed to happen tonight and that got canceled. And there's going to be one in 2 weeks, I guess, with proper notice or anything. Not that
it's going to be on Groundhog's Day. And if Adrian sees his shadow, there will be 6 more weeks of, I'm just kidding.
As long as he's not the new chair, that would be a disaster.
But he did not step up to help Angela McArdle.
Well, he's not going to step up to help Angela McArdle because I think he wants to be the chair himself. I think there's a lot of knives that will be coming out the next week. So,
I mean, there are people who think that it is their turn at the LNC donor teat, and they're like, it's my turn to suckle, damn it.
Yeah.
And I mean,
that's the thing.
We've gross imagery that is possible.
Yeah. I mean, that is the thing. They now, if there are no consequences to what Angela did, you're going to see more people who have this mindset run for these offices to try and get into those positions so that they can take advantage of.
Well, I mean,
it's not going to be as successful though, but
right. One of the most common themes in our party and one of the things in our movement is the number of people who want to get paid for being in the movement
just being there.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, how do I get paid for my Liberty podcast? How do I get paid for my brilliant ideas? With the exception of you, Dave, I know you're.
I'm rolling it, man. I'm rolling. This thing is making me so much money. Like I think I've got a quarter around here.
Exactly. But
I got a bucket of change right here.
Fighting against all those people who want to get paid for not doing shit. It is one of the biggest jobs of the loyal party members, the hardworking party members. We've got Aaron on. Aaron has busted her ass for the party. Many things that are happen behind the scenes, the convention work, all the stuff that nobody sees. There's no reward for. It's tons of hard work. Those people, the hard workers, were the first to get kicked out by the Mises Caucus because the Mises were like, well, fuck those hardworking people, right? They think that because they do all this hard work that
They worked for woke things.
well, that they should have some say in what's happening because they're doing all the work. They don't deserve that. When in reality, that was, that was the thing that kept the party in good shape for a long time, was the hardworking people getting all that stuff done. All the hardworking people.
A person who's willing to table a convention or table a outreach event is worth 50 podcasters.
Exactly.
Well, you know what Angela McArdle put on in the FEC filings of her occupation? Anyone want to take a guess? Libertarian Party slave.
Yeah.
All this money's
Slaves don't get paid, man.
And she called Karen Ann a communist, I believe, because she said that Karen Ann didn't believe she should be paid for the work that she does outside of the party.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I am Jake. Let me thank you again for all the work you've done
so much for
putting
doing
this together, so well organized, in a way that I think everybody can understand. And hopefully in a way that, I mean, for me, the best thing about it is that it was done in such a neutral way, just the facts, because the facts speak for themselves and they're very damning.
Yep.
So thank you, Jake.
Yep. Hats off to you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Well done.
All right. Let's talk about the Trumpster fire.
First week of the Trump administration. So, yeah, I mean, there's been a whole lot of things from the inauguration that had Elon Musk throwing what some people are calling a Nazi salute. Some people are disputing that. Elon Musk, I'm taking this as a compendium of all the stuff he's done as the, especially in the last year, as he has become much more politically active. Getting involved in the German elections with the Alliance for Germany, the AfD party, and some of the stuff he's done with stepping in it with Holocaust museums and things like that. To me, when you throw that out there like that, you can. I can't even say plausible deniability on this one. It just looked too much like a salute.
It did. It really did.
It was shocking.
And who in their right mind would do that?
Well, I mean, I think you've got the answer right there, Joe. Right? I mean, we know Elon is what he is, right? Good at a lot of shit, high functioning autistic, no social skills whatsoever. I mean, that's the universal report on him. For me, I have so many clear-cut anti-Semitic people in the world that if I were to rank him on my list of anti-Semitic people, he wouldn't make the top 1,000. So I don't know.
I think he does because he's got the money to. Some Joe Schmo on the internet that throws out 1488 or some other bullshit like that on Twitter. He's using Elon Musk's platform, so I think Elon Musk is much more dangerous in that respect. Again, I think he now feels like he has maybe not so much purchased the White House, but he has got himself a very deep in within the White House.
That's 100%.
He is trying to purchase the German Parliament and the German chancellorship, not for himself, but to have that same in. He's gone from purchasing companies and trying to fly ships to Mars to purchasing governments now. I mean, that's his thing now.
It is interesting. There's a I can't remember, Forbes or somebody the value of all the NFL teams combined is $100 billion. Elon Musk could buy the entire NFL.
Oh, he could. He
Wow.
could.
That would be
He could do so
pretty
much good
crazy.
with his money,
Yep.
and not just like people talk like ending world hunger, but he could do positive things. But I think he's sniffed the power that he could rightfully exert. Like if he's able to purchase an in with the German government and the United States government, that's controlling a significant portion of the world's economy because Germany is really the economic engine of Europe. So, you buying it in, you're basically buying it in within the European Union and
Mhm.
the United States. There's a lot of worry here. And I think, I've seen a lot of, from the European Parliament where people have taken to the floor to really denounce Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And I think with enough concern there. I mean, I think that there is righteous concern that what Elon Musk is trying to do is to not take over the world via military means, but through economic means by buying the world rather than. And if you can splash enough cash, I mean, him
It's-
getting Trump elected probably didn't cost him a whole lot. I mean, I don't think it was a massive investment.
I mean, it's certainly.
Well, I did hear that he contributed $120 million
That's
to
budget
one of
dust.
the PACs.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you're
Well, I
300 or $400 billion individual, that's budget dust.
Well,
He farts that much.
I mean, quite frankly, right? Exactly. It's essentially divide that by 1 million, and that's about how much it would be to the average American. The average American spend $120 to influence the election. For the average American, $120 is a significant expense, but it's something that you would spend money on for something that was good. People spend more than that on rent.
Yeah.
It is, and that's right. That's the thing, the ludicrous thing, when people say that Elon Musk lost money on Twitter. No. First of all, his net wealth has gone up. When he bought Twitter, he was worth $200 billion. Now he's worth 400. I think he's
and then
over
he can
500.
use the losses on Twitter to offset taxes as well. So
right, and I think is he over 500 billion now?
I think we talked about it last time. He was like around 400.
Right. No, but there's been a big rush since then. He's still at 422.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that there's obviously the crypto holdings, but also
they believe.
Tesla stock and a few other things.
Tesla's an interesting case study with Elon Musk in that for the longest time, his core market were liberal educated consumers that were very much interested in doing something environmental. This last year was the first year he had a drop in sales over years. And I think it's because he has pissed off a lot of that core market. And while he's trying to do the more manly things with the Cybertruck, it's just not, when you piss off.
I think the market is a little saturated as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like if I were looking to buy a cheap electric car now, I would go Hyundai before I would go Tesla 3.
Exactly. He has really sacrificed himself in this market. I think it's because he's become so focused on politics and gaining power throughout the world. It is I think it is, this is the ultimate aphrodisiac for a guy who probably was made fun of when he was a kid. And now he was probably bullied a little bit when he was a kid, and now he's come into a fuck ton of money, and now he's going to have power, and he's going to be he's done it within his personal life where he's fathered half the children in the country, and now he's looking for actual political power, and yeah, he doesn't need the U.S. to change the Constitution to allow him to run for president. He just bought himself access into the White House. Now it remains to be seen
Yeah.
going forward. Does Elon Musk become this administration's Steve Bannon, or even Scaramucci was actually that position was taken by Vivek Ramaswamy. He's already out.
It's interesting. It's interesting to look at the money in terms of political power, but also there's a lot of spending in the zeitgeist that we don't see. Like Elon Musk gave $10 million to the University of Texas to research whether or not declining population is a threat to the United States. When you pay for research like that, you tend to get the results you want.
Exactly.
And then you come out with a study saying, oh, blah, 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 this is why we need to ban birth control or whatever. It's interesting. And Aaron raises a good
That's a good question.
Yeah. I suspect that it's going to be like everything else where Elon finds that his social skills have limits. And by all accounts, his chief of staff, Susan, I can't remember her last name now, but
I can't.
super sharp political operative who understands that Trump is well known to, when adjudicating a dispute, to go with whoever he speaks to last. And so she organizes his schedule. And now not everybody has access.
Susie Wiles,
thank you. Wiley Wiles, I'll remember that. I think that Musk is going to be unhappy, but I also think that he recognizes how to leverage what he's got, which is a lot of money.
which might force Wiles out of a position. I mean, Trump is rather capricious with his
not to
ability to fire people, and
that Trump's wealth is nothing compared to Elon's.
Oh no, yeah.
So Elon could easily transfer, right? And we haven't talked about this at all, right? But the Trump coin, Elon could just buy it up, right? And suddenly he's transferred all the money legally to Donald Trump, and he's given him $1 billion. And for $1 billion, Donald Trump will let you. Well, I won't say that, but
Donald Trump will let you violate him on the desk at the Oval.
He will let you grab him by the pussy. Yeah.
I would assume that.
Yeah, I agree with Aaron's point that Elon, he's going to be confused by it, but he's also a problem solver, and so he's going to try to figure out how his money gets him the stuff that he wants.
Yeah, I think he'll end up pressuring Trump to, if Wiles. There are already stories out that Wiles is denying Elon Musk access to the West Wing. If he could put that pressure on Trump to say she is being a problem, either she allows me access or she needs to go.
Yeah.
So,
and that's interesting. Trump has certainly fired really good people who've worked for him very quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And he's fired some really bad people who's worked for him too.
It's true. I wonder. So let's keep talking about the rest of the dumpster fire.
The executive orders that have come out this week.
The immigration sweeps are the craziest ones that I've seen so far.
Oh, I haven't.
I mean, we've already seen American citizens being picked up and detained for not having documentation on them proving that they're American citizens.
Yep.
Which, of course, is complete bullshit.
Papers, please.
Yep. I wonder... there's obviously going to be real legal repercussions for this. And I mean, this is where, IJ, the Institute for Justice, and the ACLU, which I know many libertarians aren't fond of, but I think people should get over it. The fact that people don't agree with us on everything, we should respect the fact that ACLU has done a remarkable job defending the First and Fourth Amendment, which is and the Sixth, really. They've been piss poor on the Second Amendment. La-di-da. As far as I'm concerned,
we got tons of other organizations that are much more focused on
exactly. We have
on
plenty
the
of
Second Amendment
organizations-
and have done poor jobs themselves.
Exactly.
National
Exactly. Right.
Republican or Rifle.
Right. If you ask me who's done more harm to my Second Amendment rights, the ACLU or the NRA, it's the NRA, clearly. So the
gender. We're not gentlemen this week. We are ladies this week, because the gender executive order says that we are our gender assigned at the time of conception,
right,
which means we are all women,
right,
because everyone is a woman at the time of conception. The genitalia develop much later in the.
Except that there's another executive order that replaces science with the King James version of in the beginning, God created man in his image. So everybody.
So next time I'm at karaoke, I'm doing Shania Twain's "Man, I Feel Like a Woman." So
yes,
that's on my.
I will say, Dave, having bumped into you, you do feel like a woman. No, not so much anymore, though. Looking pretty thin.
They're shrinking. They're shrinking a little bit. So
here we all sit. Did we ever think we'd have to admit we're all chicks?
It's all good. I don't mind. I mean, you've seen my reface stuff, so I mean, I don't mind being seen as a woman.
yes, entertaining.
Right. That's crazy. So the ending of the Department of Labor's enforcement of
civil rights legislation, discrimination investigations,
right. It's really interesting because there is it's the most frustrating thing, because I think most people would say there are places where DEI has gotten out of control. I have a friend who works at a major hospital in Denver, and in her hospital, they had a diversity workshop every week, and they had two groups. They had the POC group, people of color group, and the white people group. And she's like, I don't want to be in either of those groups. I don't want to be in either of those caucuses. She's like, I'm gay. I'd rather be in the gay caucus. And they're like, well, we're not having a gay caucus. We're only having white people and people of color caucuses, and that's it. That's DEI out of control. Just,
it's ham-handed. I think we're seeing, and we see this a lot, because you'll see the pendulum swing one way and then it swings wildly the other way, and we're seeing it swing wildly the other way. I've got a friend that was given he's been put on administrative leave because he worked for the VA's DEI office,
right,
for the purpose of giving him a reduction in force order. Now, they're trying to move those folks into other positions that are not DEI focused. It's kind of this baby in the bathwater argument. Yes, there should be protections based off of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think the systemic issues that come with with not just the government but throughout the workforce, there should be some kind of focus on it. Do I think massive budgets need to be dedicated to this stuff? No. I mean, it really is. A lot of this stuff is about awareness and enforcing the laws. Now we're being told we're not enforcing the laws.
Right. That's not the right answer.
Yeah.
The right answer, and we sort of coming back to this,
have a discussion.
To acknowledge the fact that there are problems. People are biased at times, and they may not be aware of their own biases. And as a result, I feel bad every time I talk about it, because I don't want to mansplaining to women who have to live with that shit all their
Exactly.
lives. Or, talk about racism to black people who, experience all the subtle microaggressions that are real.
Yes.
Okay. Microaggressions are real. Okay. And, there's a comedian. He talks about it. It's a black man. He says, I got into an elevator the other day and there's a white woman in there. And I get in and, she clutches her purse really close. And I don't know what the problem is, right? I mean, why can't you just let go? Why can't you let me have
Jesus Christ.
um,
But no,
yeah.
Aaron brings up another one, the executive order on birthright citizenship, which is actually already gone before a judge and had a stay
Been
put in
suspended,
place.
yeah.
The judge was a Reagan era appointee, just a long time ago when you think about it.
Yep.
That called it blatantly unconstitutional, which is true. I mean, it's the 14th Amendment. Your executive order should not supersede a constitutional amendment.
Right.
But it actually made almost all of his children illegal, or at least non-citizens.
Yeah.
Because
There's the irony.
because Ivanka gave birth to 3 of the children, and then Melania gave birth to Barron, and I don't think she was yet a citizen when he was born, and I don't think Ivanka was
Hmm.
either.
So is his thing saying that you have to have 2 citizen parents?
I don't know.
I think it said
Yeah.
one.
If you're one citizen, then I mean,
I think his kids are okay, but it's clearly the Constitution is pretty clear on that. There's words enough there that lawyers should argue about it a little bit, but
Yeah.
in my opinion, we should probably call it the text of it. Let's just see, 14th Amendment text. All persons foreign naturalized, blah, blah, blah. All right, I'm not going to be able to find it very quickly, but
that's a good thing that happened towards the end of Biden's term, that he offered. I'm not sure if he got pardoned or clemency or whatever, but Leonard Peltier freed
right,
federal
that was
prison,
nice.
like 50 years in prison since 78.
Crazy shit. You're right. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state where they reside.
Yeah.
Couldn't be clearer. All persons
Absolutely.
born or naturalized in the United States.
But I think a lot of this stuff, especially the executive orders and the pardons that we saw at the beginning of the Trump administration, really speak to kind of the half-assed nature of the Trump administration. Like, there was talk about pardoning January 6 folks, but
But not the violent
they
ones.
were don't pardon the violent ones, and then all of a sudden they were like,
Oh my
"Oh, we're
God.
just going to pardon everybody." And so you got guys like
that is
Enrique
crazy to
Tarrio,
me.
and
That part is just insane. I don't understand it at
like,
all.
what was the rush? You could have pardoned like the non-violent guys, like the people that just walked in there. You could have
Done
pardoned
a
those
little bit
folks.
of research.
Yeah, like I mean, you had 2.5 months before, from the time you were elected until you sat in office.
Yeah.
You could have had a few people kind of going through the records to see what was
The thing,
what.
but here's the thing: Trump is transactional. So in the
Yeah.
same way that we got, and I say we loosely, but we got Ross back for something, somebody else got those guys back for something. Trump fulfilled his end of the deal.
Well,
That's what happened.
but I mean, all of this stuff is poorly thought through. I mean, they're
Oh
poking
yeah.
holes through a lot of this stuff already.
Well, and what,
The-
and people like JD Vance, I think are rightfully unhappy with this. And you saw a
Sure.
great thing about that in the Hegseth confirmation where Mitch McConnell voted against it. I think
man.
about
TikTok is. Speaking of TikTok, this is our first episode where we're actually broadcasting to TikTok. They finally integrated Restream with TikTok. May not be able to see totally because TikTok is more of a landscape or whatever the taller version, and this is more of a broadcast normal version. But TikTok, we are able to get broadcasting on TikTok this week. So.
Yeah.
The reactions to Mitch McConnell voting against Pete Hegseth on TikTok has been quite enlightening.
Well, so I haven't seen any of those. So you can tell me what she said.
They're angry. They're the Trumpers are very angry at Mitch McConnell for voting against Pete Hegseth, which in the end didn't matter.
Well, I tell you what, the Trumpers should be pretty happy about it because I think if McConnell had gone out and campaigned, he could have gotten one more vote. Like I'm surprised that Joni Ernst, for a senator from Iowa, did not vote against, because if she had, it wouldn't have come down to Vance.
Yeah.
And I think if she'd known how McConnell was going to vote, she might have had the courage of her convictions. She had some legitimate complaints. She was a lieutenant colonel in the Army. She knows all the stuff, and she knows that Hegseth says that women shouldn't serve in combat, and all the other stupid shit that he says. She knows that
out.
Yeah, exactly. She knows, right? She knows that he paid off somebody to be quiet in a domestic abuse case.
So
she knows the problem that she knows the problem that's going to cause in armed forces that has worked hard to shake some of that shit.
Hegseth certainly was the DUI hire. It's just, if the first week is any indication, it is concerning. I'm going to have to start going into the office, which I don't mind. There are some questions because my facility isn't open 5 days a week. It's only open 4 days a week. So are they going to add another day to the facility, or what's going to happen there?
You have to work 8 to 6 every day.
People are going to have to, they canceled remote positions. So people who during the pandemic got a remote position and decided to move well away from where they had been working are going to have to scramble to get back to a federal facility. So it's interesting. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's just in federal employees, and it's a pain in the ass. And I understand that the impetus behind this thing is to not so much that they want everyone to come into the office. They want to get people to quit.
Right.
The opinion is there are too many federal employees, and let's winnow them out. It may work, it may not. There's probably going to be a lot of malicious compliance going forward. That this isn't going to go as they thought it would. But we'll see how all that goes. All right, y'all ready for the quiz?
Let's do the quiz.
Let us do the quiz.
Okay, give it a shot.
All righty then.
I want to say thanks to everybody who's been tuned in for this episode, by the way. It's nice to have such big numbers. And you guys can come back. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook.
Like, share, and subscribe, as the kids say.
Yeah. Mash that pound button.
All right, so we saw a big mountain. Was that Denali, I think, maybe?
Yes, which they're going to change the name on.
There's an issue with Denali being renamed back to
Mount McKinley.
I
think they said they're going to change it to Fillmore, though, so they can be after the worst president, but also it's sort of an anachronism, right? Not anachronism, onomatopoeia. Remember the mountain, Fillmore.
There you go. So cell phone. Don't know if that's TikTok or whatever. And then Donald Trump getting inaugurated. All right. So question number
Notice,
one.
people talk about this, that Trump did not put his hand on the Bible.
He did not.
Yep.
There are a lot of other things that happened this week. There are two stories that I'll point out right quick. One, there's a massive tuberculosis outbreak going on in Kansas right now, in Kansas City area, side of Kansas.
Yeah.
And two, yesterday the news emerged that I think a dozen inspector generals of agencies were fired.
Yeah.
You're taking away watchdogs, including the Department of Defense, are being taken away. So that is a massive concern that people should be looking at here in the next few weeks of, these news stories, how they play out. All right, question number one. Donald Trump was sworn in on Monday as the 47th president of the United States. Which holiday coincided with his inauguration? President's Day, Martin Luther King Day, Columbus Day, or Flag Day?
I mean, we know this.
Janice got it as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Third Monday of January is a federal holiday that commemorates the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. That holiday coincided with the inauguration.
As Trump said, if he'd been president, Martin Luther King would not have been assassinated.
Andy got it as well. All right, question number two. Which app is back online after temporarily shutting itself down in the United States? I was right.
Tickety-tockety.
It is the Tick of the Talk.
Yep. They have ways of making you talk.
So TikTok was given they could have gone
90
to
day.
90 days, but I think they limited it to 75 days.
Oracle's gonna take it over.
Yeah, I mean they're conglomerating all these social media apps under Trump-friendly folks.
Exactly.
Question number three. Which type of severe weather swept through the South this week? Record snowfall, heat wave, tropical cyclone, or thunderstorms? Yes, that's the last one.
I'm just going to wait for the users to get this because everybody knows what happened.
If Heidi was here, she would be able to tell us, give us a
Brandy and Daryl
report.
got it. It was indeed a record snowfall.
It was a snowfall.
That's Bourbon Street.
That is Bourbon Street. Thankfully, Bourbon Street is making news for something better than it was a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Question number four. Sure. Which country in Southeast Asia became the first to recognize same-sex marriage?
I don't know this.
Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, or Vietnam? I know this one.
I don't know this, but I did just watch Zoolander, where the plot is that Derek Zoolander is being brainwashed to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia, who is fighting against child labor laws, which the fashion industry needs. So
Brady is right. It is Thailand.
Thailand.
Hundreds of same-sex couples tied the knot across Thailand on Thursday as the country became the first in Southeast Asia to recognize marriage equality. Congratulations to
Thailand.
Awesome. Question number five. Where did President Donald Trump declare a national emergency this week?
In his pants.
Los Angeles County, U.S.-Mexico border, U.S.-Canada border. Goddamn Canuckastanis. Those icebacks.
Right.
The Florida Keys.
Yeah, it's the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yeah.
Excuse he needs to send troops, which they say it's going to take about 10,000 troops to secure the border.
Yeah, an effort to crack down on illegal immigration. Trump has declared a national emergency at the southern border, mandated that the U.S. military step up its presence there. There are some things that you...
I do think we should talk about what happened with Colombia.
Posse Comitatus, using military to enforce domestic law and order. So Colombia, there was a flight of immigrants that were being sent back to Colombia. Colombia denied airspace, and Donald Trump slapped 25% tariff on Colombia which makes Don Jr.'s cocaine a whole lot more expensive.
And the Colombian president then rescinded, and then they're now sending their national airline to pick up all of the people.
Yeah, yeah.
So as much as I don't want to see people get deported, this was sort of politics of power 101.
I don't know. I mean, at some point, I think countries are going to stop doing business with the United States. I know that the United States is the 800-pound gorilla within the business, but I think it's going to start with Europe. I think European countries are going to get fed up with the Trump administration, and they're going to start pushing back, especially in the face of the wave of right-leaning parties, and to kind of stem that tide to, it is a symbiotic relationship that we need their markets, they need our markets, and all that stuff. But I think to put pressure on the United States, I think that there are some countries that are going to be like, you know what? Yeah, 25%. How about a no access to our markets?
Absolutely. I saw a story where Canadian,
Because economically, we're not doing really great either.
Pardon me?
Economically, we're not doing all that hot either.
Well,
compared to whom?
But you were talking about losing markets and countries not cooperating. Canadian Crown Royal whiskey came out and said if Trump puts even $1 of tariff on them, they will no longer ship their product to this country. So they're sending a clear signal.
We're gonna have so many good movies about independent truckers coming to pick Crown Royal up from Canada and running it across the United States.
I'd do that.
It
Eastbound and down.
would make for good movies. It would make for good movies. I think that it's. It'll be interesting to see if people try to organize a fight against it, but I don't know that Canada, which of course is U.S.-Canada trade is the largest trade between two countries by volume.
Yeah.
Canada has a lot more ability to say something than Colombia does.
Although I will say that, I mean, unless Trump really messes with the current politics of Canada, I'm going to say that at this point, Pierre Poilievre is going to be the next prime minister of Canada when the elections happen later. There's going to be an interim prime minister of the Liberal Party there in Canada that will probably lose when it comes to the election. Now, Trump can, if he kicks the hornet's nest that is Canada, can have a backlash. There may be a backlash vote there in Canada to keep the Liberals back in power, put them back in power. So,
right. I mean, the fact that he talked about removing two Canadian teams, moving Winnipeg back to the United States. No, I'm just kidding.
That's not going to happen. Although there is talk of an expansion, including Atlanta.
It's going to be Houston, Atlanta.
I would say Houston, Atlanta, probably either Kansas City and Quebec City, or maybe Portland and Quebec City.
It would be nice to see Quebec get a team back.
The problem with Quebec, I don't think it's going to be addressed, and we're starting to see a little bit with Winnipeg is the
small market
weakness of the Canadian dollar.
Yep.
And the lack of a massive corporate infrastructure there.
And there is a real huge concern about can those teams draw talent with such high taxes?
Well, look what's happened here.
Yeah,
you have NFL players opting to go to Florida rather than sign with a team in New York just for that reason.
How many of the last few Stanley Cup champions had, you've had
Vegas.
Tampa win it twice. You had the Florida Panthers appear in the last two.
Yep. The Patriots
you're starting to see teams
have talked about that as being a real problem because New England, Massachusetts passed a millionaire's tax.
Yep.
That's a special tax on people who make over $1 million a year. It's really hurting the football team.
It's not hurting the baseball team, though, because when you think about California, who I think have put in the same kind of millionaire's tax there, Los Angeles Dodgers are spending rather freely to put together a super team.
Let's see.
All right, question number 6. Which streaming platform is raising prices after reporting its biggest ever subscriber jump? Apple TV Plus, Disney Plus, Hulu, or Netflix?
Netflix.
The Netflixers.
So this is the first year of the California. 2024 is the first year of the California tax. So it'll be interesting to see if they can, in 2 or 3 years, if it makes a difference. The first year is a little tougher. Although they did sign
Ohtani and this new Roki Sasaki guy, I think his name is, the phenom that signed from Japan. Be interesting. They've both signed long-term deals and will be facing the increased taxes. All right, so we got consensus of Netflix. Yes, Netflix needs to chill. You're right, Daryl.
3rd times in 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they are cranking out great shows, I have to say. I've enjoyed a lot of the new content.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to. I definitely need to restructure all of my streaming services because I've got the YouTube TV for broadcast, and then I've got my wife likes this on this and this and that, and
how close are you, Dave, to a broadcast television station?
We're in the DC metro, or we're DC market.
Yeah, but you're far away from that.
Yeah, we're probably a good. I mean, there are relays to get it out here, but
I mean, even though most of the towers are on the western side of the city, but that's still hell and gone from you. I was going to suggest getting an HD antenna, which I've done, and I've been thrilled with it. So good. The DC stations broadcast on ATSC3, which allows them to pump a lot more signal out than the old HD antennas.
I wish I could get more, like, I could choose the city I get news from, because I really don't care. I mean, there are only so many lobbying ads I can watch, and then of course when it comes to elections, we get everything. We get Maryland, we get DC, we get West Virginia and Virginia political ads. I mean, it's just abusive. And then Virginia, of course, has to have their off-year elections for their state offices.
How close are you to Harper's Ferry?
About 25 minutes or so.
But it's mountainous, right? Are you on the east side of the Appalachians?
No, we have not quite gotten all the way to the. Well, there are hills here, but I mean,
you should try it, Dave. You should try one of those new antennas.
All right.
You can always return it.
So what do we got here?
Okay, so question number 7, which of the following is the world's largest coral reef? Janus has got it. Choices were Andros Coral Reef, Great Barrier Reef, Red Sea Coral Reef, or New Caledonia Barrier Reef.
I mean, if it's not the Great Barrier Reef, why do they call it that?
Exactly.
I mean, false advertising sometimes.
You didn't click anything.
Yep. Around 1,500 fish live in Australia's Great Barrier Reef, the world's largest coral reef. However, a new study has found that the record ocean heat and coral bleaching have reached catastrophic levels. They asked Melania whether she bleaches her asshole, and she just says no, he gets spray tanned.
Dum.
That's a great one.
Question number 8. What is the new fee to climb Mount Everest? $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000?
It's got to be 15.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of
Right, they have so many problems. There's so much trash up there, and there's so many bodies that need to be taken out now as well. So
no, they just leave them there. They're
Right,
like
but-
markers now.
right, but they need to bring them down. And people talk about it, it's just it's ridiculous.
Brandy and Daryl say 15K as well, and that is true. Nepal will increase the permit fees for climbing Mount Everest by more than 35% to $15,000. Making the world's tallest peak most expensive for mountaineers for the first time in nearly a decade.
I mean, what was the most expensive if it wasn't Everest?
I don't know. K2 maybe? I don't know.
Eiger.
Could have been Denali. I don't know. Question number 9. Which university won its first college football championship in 10 years? Michigan State, Ohio State, University of Notre Dame, or University of Oregon? I watched like 5 minutes of that game.
I didn't realize it was the first in 10 years. I thought they won when C.J. Stroud was there.
No. Was it Maurice
They
Jones
lost to
Drew
Alabama
or
or Clemson that year?
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Anyway.
But yeah, Ohio State won their first national championship in 10 years with a 34-23 victory. I mean, when I turned it off, it was like 31-3 or something like that. I was like, yeah, all right.
You just like hand them the trophy.
Yeah. Question number 10. The nominations for the 97th Academy Awards were announced Thursday. Which film led the most nods? Wicked, Amelia Perez, Gladiator 2, or Conclave?
I have no idea.
I haven't seen any of those.
It can't be Gladiator 2.
I have to guess Wicked.
Although I got a joke for you.
Randy says it's wicked hard.
What do you call a Roman with a hair between his teeth?
I don't know.
Gladiator.
When the first movie came out and it was Russell Crowe, there was the story about him and Meg Ryan going out. I was like, it's a movie about what he was glad he did with Meg Ryan.
That's funny. They were in that movie together, Proof of Life. I would guess
no, Amelia Perez. Wow.
Oh, that's interesting. So
Daryl got it though.
I was going to guess Wicked because it could do all the music ones, but I think that I should have guessed Amelia Perez because there was an op-ed in the Washington Post saying that it was a terrible movie. So you only see haters come out if your movie is super popular.
Yeah. All right.
Followed by
Amelia Perez led with 13 nominations, followed by The Brutalist and Wicked with 10 each. And the Oscars will be on the air March 2nd, and I won't be watching.
I haven't even heard of The Brutalist.
I haven't heard of any of these. I mean, I've heard of Wicked. Wife went to see Wicked. I didn't realize there was a Gladiator 2. I thought the first one was fine enough. Why did you have to do that again?
Yeah.
But all right, 9 out of 10 this week. Not bad.
Not bad.
Yep.
Not bad.
Yep.
Had a couple weeks off, back in the swing of things. But that's it for the show tonight, man.
We're going to be on next week.
Well done.
But I
well
think
done.
we're not going to be on Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh no, we're going to do the Super Bowl show.
Okay.
I'm going to do
Absolutely.
the Superb Owl. This will be our fourth time doing the Superb Owl.
I will be off celebrating the Super Bowl.
All right, you do that.
Americans should be.
Go Buffalo Bill.
Well, I mean, we don't go on air until about 15 minutes after the game's over, anyway. So you have to watch
the Bills didn't win, but
do we go after?
Got to pull for the Eagles.
Yeah. I my brother's in town, so we're just going to be hanging out and doing Super Bowl.
All right, yeah. So who are you picking for the Super Bowl?
No, I'm picking Eagles the whole way.
Yeah.
I mean, I will tell you, don't think Kansas City is that good. At least I didn't
I
know
don't
them here. I
either.
thought they were really lucky, but that was a good Buffalo team they beat.
It sure was. I thought Buffalo
Yeah.
had them.
It
And
was a crap division that they're in. They've benefited
yeah,
from having a division with teams that have kind of rotated through the crap.
yeah. But they
uh,
also, they beat Houston, right, in the first round. And
Yep,
that was a good
they
Houston
beat
team, too.
Houston.
Then
So,
Ravens.
oh, right. No, the
No,
Bills
Buffalo
beat
beat
the
the
Ravens.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
Buffalo
right.
beat the
That's
Ravens.
right. That's right.
Yeah. So,
You know what? As a Buffalo, I'm not a huge Buffalo Bills fan. Of the AFC teams that I enjoy, that the Bills are probably my favorite. I'm a Giants fan, so I don't even care about it. You don't have to worry about the season. About a month in, it's over. But now in Buffalo, it is now Sabres season, which cue the drinking. They're dead last in the Eastern Conference, so
wait a minute.
back where
Wait a
they
minute.
normally are.
I think we have to put things into comparison, though. Where the Sabres are is disappointing, but I think the Bruins are the most disappointing team this year.
No.
No, you don't think so?
They can still make the playoffs. The Sabres are out of it. They're 10 points away from the 7th place team.
Well, wait a minute. The Sabres were mathematically eliminated before the season started.
At the draft. Yes, they were eliminated at the draft.
Oh, that's cruel.
So I don't know.
For 14 goddamn years.
Yeah. The Bruins are on a nice. They've got 2 in a row now.
And they play Buffalo on Tuesday, so they'll get that third one.
I tell you what, Dave, we should
Right,
road trip up to the Igloo to what do they call the Buffalo Stadium? Igloo's Pittsburgh.
No, the Igloos
Pittsburgh used to be the Igloo, but it's gone.
Buffalo used to be called the HSBC Arena for the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation Bank. Although the HSBC, when it was called HSBC, it was short. It was actually holy shit, Buffalo's cold. Now it is KeyBank Center.
That's funny.
I do have a brick over there of the old Memorial Auditorium, which is Buffalo's first arena, and signed by Rick Jeanneret, Darcy Regier, the general manager at the time, and Lindy Roth. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, is it what's an 8-hour drive for you?
Yeah, about 8 hours to Buffalo.
Yeah, that's a long trip for a game, but
shuffle up to Buffalo.
Yeah,
I wouldn't make the trip until the end of the season, probably, knowing that you could get to Buffalo, but then be buried by 12 feet of snow.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is if you go to a Buffalo game at the end of May, there's a reasonable chance you could be appointed the emergency goalie. So,
well, seeing as the Sabres have not played into the middle of April since 2012.
Right. See, I keep
2011. Sorry,
that is where being a Bruins fan has biased me. I keep thinking that May is the end of the season.
No. May is not the end of the season. The end of the season for you guys is when you play Florida. So,
right, which is usually in June. So, or the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're not the Maple Leafs. So,
yeah, it's true. All right, we should let everybody go to bed.
Yeah, everyone go to bed. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Janice,
nice
Andy, Aaron, Kat. We had a lot of great comments in the show. Give us a like, share, subscribe wherever you're watching us from, and we'll see you all next week on the Political Deep Dive.
See you then.
Say good night, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.